For this week's movement breakdown, we're going to look into the principle of extension to flexion, which is really applicable for a lot of exercises inside of CrossFit, but also for different sports like basketball or American football that require a quick switch between a extended position and a flex position. So let's jump into this video. So what we want with this movement is a violent hip extension accompanied by a upward pull. So according to the set principle, we adapt to what we expose our bodies to. So set stands for specific adaptations to imposed demands. So that means that our body adapts to the stressors that we put it on. So our bodies will adapt to the exercises that we do, of course. So when we do a lot of bench presses, we will get a really big chest, and when we do a lot of squats, we will get big quad. So here comes the point. We use a lot of exercises inside of CrossFit or inside functional fitness that translates to the field of sports. So like American football. You see a lot of American footballers do CrossFit style of training, so like mixing modals and do Olympic lifts and all that. It's not the same, of course, but it looks really similar. And the reason why they do a lot of those exercises is, of course, because they are really compound exercises and that they look a lot like what they do on the field. So one of those exercises that they oftentimes do are the clean, the jerk, and the snatch. So basically 3 exercises, but we bucket them all inside Olympic weightlifting. So their Ollie form is of a less priority than Olympic weightlifters because it's not their main sport, but it can be really functional, of course, if their mechanics are on point. So one thing that is really important if we want to do the Ollie lifts to improve on the field is that we incorporate the principle of extension to flexion, and mainly in the lower body. So we want to extend the next 3 points, and those are the knees, the ankles, and the hips. If we extend those joints all at the same time, and if it's properly timed, the bar will go straight up in an efficient way. If you don't extend them all at the same time, or your timing is off, you will notice that the bar will go forward and you will most likely or fail the lift or have a really hard time to save it. So we know that we need extension in those parts, but we rapidly need to follow that up with flexion. So a squat movement basically, but now we have, of course, a squat clean or a squat snatch and a power clean and a power snatch, a split snatch and a split clean. But the principle for all of these movements are basically the same. We extend and we go underneath it, so we go from extension to flexion. So one mistake that oftentimes happens when individuals do Ollie lift but their mechanics are really off is that they bounce the bar off of the body. This is a critical mistake, being that we're now teaching ourselves to bounce the bar forward instead of jumping the bar upwards. So the adaptations from doing the lift in that way will be that we're really good at bouncing the bar off of the body instead of extending those joints all rapidly and as explosive as possible at the same time to jump the bar upwards. So the adaptations are really different from doing a clean or a snatch in a way that we extend those 3 joints all at the same time and get the bar as straight as possible upward, as opposed to doing a Ollie lift while bouncing the bar off of the body. So not only does it translate really bad to the field of sports, but it is also a really inefficient way to make your lift. If we snatch with the bar bouncing off of the hip, chances are high that you will get it overhead and it will go back while you go down. So it will be really difficult to maintain the bar in a stable position straight over the base of support. One awful thing that I also see often, and that really needs to stop, is when individuals have no hip extension at all and they completely bounce the bar off of the hips. That absolutely diminishes the principle of extension to flexion, which is why we do the ollie lifts. For one, it translates really well to jumps or sport-specific scenarios. If you're having a hard time to get the triple extension, so the extension from the hips, knees and the ankles, and you're not good at the timing, one smart option would be to just start with a high hang position or a power position. So when you're at the hips, and you practice the movement from there, so that you can just focus on getting a dip, then extending upwards with the 3 joints all at the same time, and then following that up with the flex position again. So it's really important to get this movement dialed in. It's also really important to understand that if we don't practice it with the right mechanics and we go heavier while we're not able to effectively execute this principle or the exercise, we will build bad motor pathways. And over time, you will learn yourself to lift like this. And eventually, if you would want to change the way you lift the bar or your mechanics, it will be a really difficult job because the movement is so dialed into the system. So it is really important for your future CrossFit career or your Olympic weightlifting career that you incorporate the right principles when doing the ollie lifts. And if you're not able to do that while the bar is on the floor, just go easier and try it from the hips or from the knees, so that you have a smaller range of motion. So that's the first part of the exercise, the dip and drive, so the extension part. Now comes the flexion part, so the part that we decelerate the bar on the shoulders into a proper front rack position and considering how to position the lower body. So the front rack position, what we want to see is the bar resting on the deltoids, so on the shoulders, with the elbows up. So it's more important that the bar rests on the shoulders than it is that you get the elbows in a 90-degree angle from the upper body. It is important to get the elbows high, but it is more important that you get the bar on the body and on the shoulders immediately in the catch. Then when we decelerate, this is the really important part of the exercise, is that we properly decelerate. If we don't properly decelerate inside the catch, the risk of injury significantly increases. So what we want to see in the lower body is the knees in line with the toes, the entire foot on the ground, and balance from the hips going backwards and the knees going forward. So if the knees are only going forward and the hips stay in the same place, we for one get a lot of torque on the lower back, so on the lumbar spine, but we also are really out of balance and not able to go lower if we want. So if we would want to go lower, we would have to push the knees more forward till we eventually would fall on our back. It also diminishes again the principle of extension to flexion, which is that we want 3 flexions again from 3 joints, which are the same as the triple extension part that we just spoke about. So the hips, the knees and the ankles. And that's it for this principle. So extension to flexion, basically for high hang cleans or high hang snatches, it is flexion to extension to flexion again, but the principle remains the same. So we aggressively extend upwards and then we go into flexion as fast as we can and following that up really quickly. If you like this video, subscribe on our channel, and I hope to see you next time with another movement breakdown video.